Hello and welcome to episode 32 of Bloggers Are Weird. I'm your host, DJ Paris, from the blog thoughtsfromparis.com, and I also have an app for your Android or Apple device. Head on over to the app stores and look for Thoughts from Paris, or do a search for my Twitter handle, which is TFP, Thoughts from Paris Humor Blog. You'll find it. And in that app, you can listen to all these podcasts, watch the videos I put on YouTube, as well as, of course, read my blog. And you get notified in real time every time I post something. So that way, because you've got better things to do than go to my blog every day. I'm sure you do. So this way, it'll just tell you right in front. Okay, today on the show, I'm really, really excited because we're tackling a topic that I don't think we've yet discussed from one of my favorite people, Norine Dworkin McDaniel, who is the co-founder of the blog Science of Parenthood, which is an awesome, really super funny, cool blog. But she talks all about how to grow your blog into a business. And this is her absolute passion and dedication. And it is so refreshing to hear somebody talk about branding and how do you get out there and get interviews and get noticed. She's only been doing this 18 months and she already has been on Sirius with Martha Stewart and all over the internet with various podcasts and print interviews and everything. She's great, and she's just a fantastically fun person. And she comes from the media industry, so she's got all this publishing background as well. And she's super funny. She'll also talk about how she handled criticism when one of her posts about circumcision went viral. So grab an IPA or whatever your drug of choice is. Mine was that big box of Runts because I had jury duty today, and although I didn't get called, so I just sat in a chair till 4 o'clock, but I ate a whole big box of Runts. Anyway, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Today's podcast is sponsored by romance-text.com. Looking to reignite the passion in your relationship? You have to check out romance-text.com. This is how to use text messages to bring back the passion and reignite the spark you once had. Now, if you're thinking this sounds cheesy, or maybe it's just learning how to send dirty text messages, it's actually not. This program by relationship expert Michael Fiore has been featured in over 200 television and radio shows. This program has a money-back guarantee, is normally $97, but listeners of Bloggers Are Weird get a special price of only $47 for the entire program. By purchasing the program, you help support this show. Visit romance-text.com and get the passion back.
I'm often part of Facebook group conversations, where newer bloggers, they get really scared when the haters come and post, or just even people who have unpleasant things to say. They don't even have to be haters. And that circumcision essay story is what I always trot out to explain, kind of sticks and stones. They can't hurt you. And going through something like this actually makes you a stronger writer, blogger.
I agree. And it's also, when it happens to me, I just always find that there's humor in that sort of situation. And, there's just a lot of crazy people out there, and there's not anything you can do about it.
Oh, the internet breeds a specific kind of crazy person. I come out of old media, and in, years gone by, if you didn't agree with something, you would write a letter to the editor, or if you were one of those old curmudgeonly people, you would write letters to the editor all the time. And sometimes they would be put in, or sometimes they wouldn't. Or if a negative viewpoint was put in, a positive viewpoint would be put in, opposite, for balance. But the internet lets everybody put in their 2 cents. And there's something about the anonymity that makes it very freeing for people to say things that they'd never say to your face. And sometimes the things that they say can be truly, truly horrible. So I've been on the receiving end of that. And I sort of like to share my stories with newer bloggers who kind of get weirded out if somebody says anything negative about what they've written. And I don't know, I was in the middle of a hate storm, and it lasted for several days, and it was unnerving, but there's not anything that frightens me on the internet now.
Yeah, no, I've had not quite that level of experience, but I get those kind of comments once in a while, and part of me wants to reply back and engage, and then the other part of me goes, that's not for me, it's not healthy for me, because then I'm like giving away my power to some idiot, and I'm playing into what they want. And then I just go, I don't care, but part of me wants to just destroy them in any way that I can, verbally or on. But anyway, by the way, I am speaking with Norine Dworkin McDaniel, who is the co-founder of scienceofparenthood.com, co-creator, co-founder. And she and I met at a recent blog conference, the Irma Bombeck thing. And I really, really like Noreen a lot. And she has a passion for blogging, a very uncommon passion, in the sense that she is absolutely determined to turn this website, which is in the process of becoming a huge, huge hit, making it into a business. And so I want to pick your brain about that as well. But thanks for being on the show.
Oh, DJ, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, let me actually read off some of your accomplishments, which I rarely do, but I was taking a look at, I always forget to look at what people have done, but you've actually had a lot of press. I know that you were on the Sirius show with the Martha Stewart channel. You've also been on CNN and God, I mean, just a million other things. So Scary Mommy and Lost in Suburbia, Tracy Beckerman stuff. And just, you're all over the place. So I never get asked to do anything. So I love the fact that somebody's getting asked to do things.
It's a lot of fun to be asked onto shows, just as I was delighted to be here. It's since I come out of magazines and newspapers, usually I'm the one who's doing the asking, and it's quite the new experience for me to be the one being asked, and it's quite lovely, actually. So thank you very much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm a fan. I love the cartoons on the site. I love that because nobody does that. I mean, probably people do, but I'm not aware of anyone else that does that. And at least on the parenting side, and really, I don't know anyone else that does it in any side. But I love those short, bite-sized, funny, hits that you can just quickly get in and out of. And I just think it's a great little addition to the site. I think that's so cool.
Thank you. I started doing these in late 2012. I started putting these sciencey quote unquote explanations for parenting situations on my Facebook page, and I realized that they'd be a lot more interesting to people, because I was getting good feedback about them, but I realized that they'd be a lot more interesting and people would be more likely to pass them along and share them with their friends if they had some images to go with them. And I happen to be friends with one of the most wonderful creative illustrators on the planet, Jessica Ziegler. She's now my partner in Science of Parenthood, and the two of us created these cartoons that everybody likes to read and to share. For the most part, I do the writing, and she does all of the illustrating. And she's fascinating in her own right. Her father is Jack Ziegler, who is one of the preeminent cartoonists for The New Yorker. So she comes from illustration royalty, as it were.
Yeah, well, you guys do a great job of that, and it's I just love this idea. It's such a smart idea to do these quick hits, and then also longer stories, and you do a lot of essay stuff. But I just think it's such a smart niche. So what are you reading for us today?
Well, I have an essay. We do a series on our blog that explains the story behind the cartoon, and we did a cartoon called Obsessive Execution Disorder, and we explain that as the inability to resist commandeering a school project because your child has not executed it to your high standards, and that's me. That's absolutely me to a T. So this is the story behind obsessive execution disorder. Back when my son was in kindergarten, he'd come home every so often with an assignment to put together a poster presentation on a country in whatever part of the world his class was studying at the moment. And naturally, given that my then 4-year-old thought baby sounds, not search engine, when he heard the word Google, and since he had yet to master even the hunt and peck approach to typing on a keyboard, his homework assignments became my homework assignments. That year, I learned an awful lot about Japan, Egypt, Chile, and Spain. Did you know Spain produces 44% of the world's olives? It's fascinating, right? Still, it wasn't like my kid had been asked to do a PowerPoint presentation on Spain's debt crisis, which is a good thing because I'd have been completely useless there. Poster presentations are fairly easy, drawing on those essential kindergarten skills: cutting, pasting, scrawling with crayon. So even though I was some 40 years removed from kindergarten, I had some inkling of what the end product should look like. With our very first poster project, we spent the day Googling pictures of Spain's geography, architecture, food, and culture. Or, to be more precise, we spent 24 hours in 10-minute increments over many, many, many days, because that is the average attention span of a kindergartner who's not playing hill climb on your iPad. Because if the project was to play hill climb on the iPad, he'd have the whole damn thing knocked out in 5 minutes. But since teachers, even kindergarten teachers, do not send kids home with instructions to play hill climb on the iPad and then report back, it will take approximately 3 weeks to do a poster project that would take the average adult about 20 minutes to assemble. That's if there was a paper jam and you need to run to Staples for more ink, and the Staples is 10 minutes away and you get a flat tire en route. Being that the kid was 4 and had never put together a poster presentation before, and because I have a black belt in perfectionism, the trick to pulling together this poster project would be to gently guide my child in the process of cutting out the images and gently make suggestions about how they might be artfully arranged on the poster board, without shoving him out of the way and slapping the whole thing together myself. I wanted him to do it by himself, and I wanted it to be good. I wanted it to be the best damn poster presentation on Spain the kindergarten teacher had ever seen. I wanted him to do a good project by himself. You're probably beginning to see the enormous sinkhole threatening to open up right under this precarious situation. He needs to do it. Let him do it, I scolded my husband when the poor man attempted to position some of the images on the poster himself. My husband then slunk off to clean the pool filter, something he knew he would not get yelled at for doing, because I have no idea how to clean the pool filter and would never think of cleaning the pool filter anyway. But then it was me hovering, micromanaging the project, basically doing what I just chided my husband for doing. Yes, I wanted my kid to do it by himself. I just wanted him to do it by himself, my way. Did somebody say sinkhole? Here, sweet pea, let me show you. I tried to be helpful and move the damn project forward. But alas, by this time, my son had reached the end of his 4-year-old attention span. I couldn't blame him. I was so tired of sitting and watching him cut out the images to paste on the poster board, because a 4-year-old will only cut out images if you remain sitting right next to him at all times. By the time we reached the actual arranging and pasting stage of the project, I would have willingly spent the rest of the afternoon watching episodes of Thomas the Tank Engine, the most inane children's show this side of Barney. If we could just, for the love of Pete, wrap this up already. But while I couldn't budge him forward, I couldn't walk away either. While my kid clearly didn't want to work on the project anymore, he still refused any and all entreaties to give it a fucking rest. Okay, sweet pea, I said, forcibly swallowing my annoyance. How about you try it this way? But every attempt to demonstrate how he might organize the material was met with resistance. There really is no stubbornness like 4-year-old stubbornness. He was young enough to outlast me and old enough to know he was driving me batshit crazy doing it. He pouted that he didn't know what to do, then insisted he didn't want my suggestions either. In an act of supreme frustration, he swept all the photos that had been laid out on the poster into a pile on the floor. I thought back to the teacher telling me this would be a fun project, and wondered what she'd been growing in her garden and smoking. There was no fun. What there was prodding, there was cajoling, there was bargaining, and angst, and anger, and tears. There was yelling, just glue the pictures on and be done with it. It's possible scissors were thrown, safety scissors, more like drop, with a great deal of force. Still, it was definitely not my proudest moment. But eventually, every picture was stuck on the foam board in some manner, and there was crayon scrawl beneath identifying what each picture was. It was a mess. It looked exactly like a 4-year-old did it. Crooked pictures, jagged cutouts, illegible crayon scribbles. Walking into school the next morning, I caught another mom carrying her kid's poster into the classroom. It was a poster about Holland, and it was beautiful. I stopped her just so I could admire it. There were photos from a family trip arranged just so. a candy wrapper from a bar of Dutch chocolate, postcards of windmills, pictures of tulips. This was a work of art. For a moment, I had an ugly flash of poster envy. Now, why didn't my kid's poster look like that? This was gorgeous, so tidy, so perfect, so... Oh, I really can be a little slow on the uptake, especially before I finish my first gallon of coffee. And then I realized it was so perfect, it was highly unlikely her kid had any part in its assembly. Maybe he'd had some buy-in on the concept, maybe he'd chosen the country, but Mom had done the heavy lifting and the curating and pasting, and it showed. I looked at my kid's poster again. It looked exactly like a 4-year-old had done it, and it made me proud.
That's great. I was thinking back. I don't think my parents, who were very active and involved, I don't think they helped me with anything. Maybe they did, and I've forgotten. But I know that is a very common experience for younger children and mothers, and a lot of competition between moms. And
yeah, it's really crazy because I don't believe that kids get anything if the parents are really doing all of the work for the homework. And yet we have all these expectations that the stuff is going to be, picture perfect. I have that battle with myself all the time because I already went through kindergarten and elementary school. I don't feel like I have to learn that material again. I really want my kid to do it.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, so I wanted to get back to what we were talking about before I introduced you. And by the way, in case I didn't mention this, read Science of Parenthood. It's scienceofparenthood.com, and we'll go through your Twitter and Facebook stuff as well. But you kind of became a mini celebrity, or however you want to call it, from your post that had a viral take, which was the post about circumcision. And you told me this story at Irma, and I had to go and read it immediately. And talking about igniting a firestorm, I mean, to me, I was exactly on the same page as you. But can you tell us that story?
Oh, sure. Back in 2008, I had a different blog that was mainly for essays that I was writing about being a new mom. And on that blog, I had a essay that I had done in which I recounted a mock debate, quote unquote. Imagine it, I'm doing air quotes now, debate with my husband about whether we would or would not circumcise our son. And I wrote what I thought was a very humorous essay about all of the arguments that I had, pulled out, to convince my somewhat skeptical husband who wasn't quite sure that he wanted to do this. And DJ, should I give away the punchline, or should
No, Well, no. You know what? Let's not give away the punchline so that people go read it,
okay.
Because it's a great piece in its entirety. So
for your listeners, if you Google my name, Norine Dworkin McDaniel, and circumcision, I'm sure a lot of the hate comes up, but the essay is called Circumcision Decision. So fast forward a couple of years, and I entered that particular essay into an essay contest, and I won. And when the woman who was sponsoring the essay contest put the essay up on her site with all these congratulations, suddenly her site, and then a few days later my site, was inundated with people who were vehemently against circumcision. They called themselves intactivists. And it was crazy. People took this not as a funny, lighthearted, debate, argument, sparring match that I had with my husband, but they took it dead seriously. And suddenly we were, my husband included, at the center of a 4-day long hate storm, wherein my inbox was, because my inbox is connected with my blog for the comments, so I know when people leave me comments, the hate was just pouring in. I was called the most evil mom in America. I was called an embarrassment to all Jewish people, and I was called a bitch. I was called all kinds of things. This one guy even said that he hoped that I'd get kicked so hard in the genitals that my clitoris would fall off. Which, if you're kind of being anti-mutilation, I think that doesn't quite go with your point. But anyway, it was really, really scary. this hate storm that was swirling around us for 4 days. It was very unnerving. But the thing is, I realized that these people were not coming through the computer to get me. And nobody else was coming to get me either. And going through the experience once the storm passed, it's really made me a stronger blogger. You know, when we write and we touch on hot button issues, even quite by accident. I mean, I've written about autism, I've written about abortion, I've written about masturbation, I write about sex. So, you know, I'm used to hitting the hot button issues. This one took me by surprise. But if you're going to write, you will inevitably stumble into something that somebody's vehemently against. And they're going to say something because the internet does kind of bring out this special breed of commenter who feels that they can say anything, no matter how rude, because they're commenting anonymously. And just dealing with that storm over those 4 days, really, you know, that which doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So this experience has made me a stronger blogger, and I don't get riled or I'm unflappable in the face of this kind of stuff. And when other bloggers ask me, you know, oh my goodness, what, you know, people are saying nasty things about my blog post, I said, don't read the comments. Just, you know, close it out. Don't read it. It's not important. They can't hurt you.
Yeah, and these people, by and large, are just way too cowardly to actually go do anything about it. They're just anonymous, you know, people behind computer screens. And
absolutely, this one woman, she actually called me out by name in a Dear Noreen letter posted on her website, and she went through a laundry list of reasons why she hoped that I would reconsider the damage I had done to my son. And then she signed it with a pseudonym. And I know it's a pseudonym because she and I have been emailing back and forth behind the scenes with her real name. And I thought that was the most cowardly thing she possibly could have done. Now, goodness, DJ, I'm sure that if you tag this with circumcision, you know, you may also experience these people, because this is their subject, and they're passionate.
Well, I just recently wrote a blog post where my girlfriend is allergic to cats, and I have a cat and a dog, and they're best friends, and the cat and the dog sleep together, and they're very, very close. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, if I have to choose between a cat or I've had the cat ever since she was a kitten, and I love her just as much as I love anything. But at the end of the day, if I had to choose, if I had a Sophie's choice of cat or, you know, future wife, I'm going future wife. And I was married to a veterinarian. I love animals more than anyone, as much as anyone would love their animals. I take my dog to work every day. I could not be more into animals. And however, and the reason why I wrote this story was because my girlfriend is allergic to cats, and I started to kind of come to a realization that while she would never ask me to do that, and I know that it may come to a point if we get married where it's a decision I'll have to make. Not because she's pressuring me. She's never said a word about it. But I just, I don't want my wife to be uncomfortable for the rest of her life. And there's other options, we would try medication and whatever. But, if it came down to my wife is not comfortable in her own home, then there would be a thing where I'd have to get rid of the cat. And I just thought, I wrote this piece to talk about how I was getting to a place where I started realizing how important, having a future relationship with it. And I didn't think anything of it because, and then I got so many people who said, how dare you consider getting rid of your cat, and your girlfriend should, and then they started attacking my girlfriend because in some way they thought she was responsible for me and it's just, people are crazy. And so you just kind of go, oh, I mean, for me, I just realized, okay, they think that, and I don't really care, so, but she cared very much because she's on TV a lot, and she does a lot of things. I didn't mention her by name, but right. You could figure out who she is if you wanted to. And so the idea is she went, just don't write about me anymore. And because she goes, I'm looking like the horrible person. She goes, I've never asked you to give up the cat. I said, I know. I thought it was romantic for me to say I'm willing to give up one of my pets, which I would never do, but if, for the love of my wife. So anyway, so people are nuts, and there's just not much you can do about it. And I've also heard a theory that in some ways these people actually love you, and they actually read you, they're obsessed about you. These people that, get so fired up about things. And so part of me is like I get a little mild flattered, even though a lot of it can be negative. I get kind of oh, look, they're paying attention to me because, I need that sort of validation. But so anyway, I want to talk about something that was very obvious to anyone probably who's met you, is how passionate you are about building your brand, because I know a ton of bloggers and no one wants to talk about it because it makes us, and I know this because when you talk about it, it's so true and honest, and we all deep down, most of us kind of go, yeah, I'd really like to do that too, but we just think it's not cool maybe. But you are right out in front saying, I want to make this into a big deal, and talk about that. How are you doing with that? What suggestions do you have for the rest of us that really want to build our brand?
Well, I am all about building the Science of Parenthood brand, as is my partner Jessica Ziegler. In fact, we just came back from the Blog University conference. It was the very first maiden voyage for this conference, and it was put on by an amazing group of women. Stephanie Geist was the conference organizer, and she pulled in all kinds of wonderful bloggers like Jen Mann and Anna Luther and Nicole Lee Shaw and Kim Bongiorno, all big name bloggers to help her put on this conference. And Jessica and I do what we always do when we go to a conference. We rolled in with our Science of Parenthood t-shirts. I now have a complete wardrobe of Science of Parenthood t-shirts in white and black. And we were holding our Science of Parenthood travel mugs that we filled up with coffee every day, several times a day, because conference rooms are cold. And we have Science of Parenthood tags on our luggage. And I made a Science of Parenthood phone case for my phone. I figure that if I am going to be displaying any kind of brand advertising on my body, like my 7 jeans or my Nike sneakers, I can also display my brand. I'm a huge booster for my brand. So one of the things that we do is just to make sure that as many people as possible get familiar with what we look like, not us personally, but what the Science of Parenthood logo looks like. So all of our material looks of a piece. If you go on our Pinterest boards or you see our stuff pinned other places, it all looks like it came out of Science of Parenthood. Is that sort of on point for you? Am I going in the right direction there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's such an important part. I've always said this, that the more eyeballs you get on your product, or your, in this case, your words, your website, the more opportunity you have to grow it into a business, which is obvious. We all know that. So I've always felt there's absolutely nothing wrong with owning that you like what you do and you're good at it. And, humility. I just talked about this on the last podcast I had with Susie Soro, who's a comedian and also a writer. And she's great. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but
yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah. So she said, and I don't know if this made it on the podcast. Oh, sorry, my dog's. Hang on. Anyway, so Susie was saying that when we were talking about her as a comedian, she said, I'm really funny. And I said, yeah, you are really funny. And then I said, boy, that's unusual to hear somebody own what they're good at without, some sort of self-effacing comment. She just went, I'm really funny. And then she went on a little, discussion about why she thinks how important it is for women, especially little girls, to own what they're good at.
Absolutely.
And to not apologize for the fact that this is what I'm trying to do, this is what I'm good at, and moving from there. And so that is you to a T.
It's interesting because it didn't always used to be. That's something that I've grown into as I've matured and as I've gotten more experience, and as I've come into my own really as a writer and a blogger. But I make a point of taking the mic and stepping up to ask a question in almost any session that I'm at in a conference, so that I can stand up and say, my name is Noreen and I'm with Science of Parenthood. I will come up with any kind of a question just so that I can get my name and my blog out into the ears of people who are also sitting in the conference session. I've never quite understood people who just, you have an audience, at least in that conference session, and you raise your hand to ask a question, you don't introduce yourself, so nobody knows who you are. I take every opportunity to make sure that people know who I am, and not just for me, but for the brand. We are signing with a public relations firm because we want to grow our audience, because we've been told that we do good work. We think we do good work. People seem to really enjoy the cartoons that we do and the essays that we write. And we want more people to enjoy them. So we are signing with a public relations firm to start work on helping us reach a larger audience, because in 2015 we have plans for a book to come out. So we're doing it step by step to get to where we need to be.
Yeah, I love that. And I just think there's so many bloggers who there's a stigma about talking about, God forbid you make money on your blog, how awful. And, you could actually support yourself with a blog. And it's that only happens to the Bloggess and Deuce and a few others. No, it can happen. And it's going to, take a lot of marketing and a lot of good quality content. But if you just think about, consistently getting your brand out there, having a brand to promote and getting, good quality messages. I mean, I get all my traffic from Twitter, and bloggers are largely ignorant about how to use Twitter. In fact, I'm going to pitch Stephanie for Blog U and Kim and Jen, and we all talked about this, is that I want to teach people, I want to go to the next one and do a talk on how to use Twitter.
That was great.
Yeah, because it is people. Everyone knows Facebook, and I don't know Facebook. I get horrible traffic from Facebook. I get everything from Twitter. So but the reason I do it is because every day I get a few hundred new followers. I get that because I write funny content.
Exactly.
People then follow me, and then they see that I post blogs and blah, blah, blah. And I get all my traffic from there. I get nothing from Facebook. In fact, I need to learn how to get traffic from Facebook.
Well, we should trade, because we get a lot of Facebook traffic, and we're growing incrementally in an organic way at this point. Every day we get a few more people. It would be lovely to get a few hundred people. So I'm definitely going to attend your session next year at Blog U.
Yeah, well, if they'll have me. So I think they will, but we'll see. So let's talk about just how you started the blog. I want to hear the origin story, because you've told me it before, but I want our audience to hear it.
This is actually one of my favorite stories to tell, because this science of parenthood, I mean, talk about making like an enormous life change. I was a full-time freelance magazine writer for decades. If you can pick it up at the supermarket checkout counter, chances are I've worked with them, except for the Inquirer. I don't do that kind of stuff. But as everyone knows, magazine publishing has changed dramatically, and I had to find something else to do, because the formats were changing. Magazine article lengths were getting shorter. I wasn't getting paid as much for magazine work, and I needed to find another outlet, and I wanted to find a new creative direction to go in. So I had read Justin Halpern's book, Shit My Dad Says, and his story is legendary. He tweeted his way basically to a book deal and ultimately a TV show, which I don't think it went very far, but the idea that he actually had something with William Shatner attached to it was quite remarkable to me. And I loved his book. Very funny book. So I thought, well, if he did it on Twitter, maybe I could do it. I had begun writing these science-y little observations about the things that drive parents, crazy about, taking care of babies or taking care of toddlers and, raising children and no sleep and lots of vomit. So I started putting these things out on Facebook. And then I realized that I had a bunch of them, and maybe they'd make for a really lovely gift book. And perhaps I could get together with a girlfriend, Jessica Ziegler, who is a phenomenal illustrator, and we could bang something out quickly for Mother's Day, I was thinking. So it was New Year's Eve, 2012, and I called her up and I pitched her my idea. Would you like to illustrate a gift book? And she thought about it for a second. It's amazing to me that she didn't immediately hang up the phone, considering that I just asked her for a ton of free work and no guarantee on return. And then she says, I think it's bigger than a book. She says, I could see this as a blog. I could see this as a Facebook page and a Twitter handle, Twitter feed. I could see this with products. And she starts, brainstorming all of these ideas. And I'm like, you're right. It is bigger than a book. And so within about, 15 minutes, we did a name search, and unbelievably, Science of Parenthood was not taken. So she secured our name. Then she secured our URL, and then she made us a Facebook page, and then she got us a Twitter handle, and we were in business. So I sent her all of these ideas. I had about 60 of these at this point, and we set it up in Google Docs, and I sent her. I shared with her all of the little sayings that I had written, and she went to work illustrating them. And then on January 14th, so 2 weeks after we had the initial, do you want to illustrate a book? Imagine that sung to, do you want to build a snowman? And she had these illustrated, and we rolled out on Facebook first, and then a week later we unveiled the blog, and we've been in business now about 18 months.
And the one thing I love about you guys is that you've invest in your business. You invest as any business owner would. You go to every conference. You have merchandise. You get out there and reach out to media outlets. And I think, I always tell people who write, and not everyone can afford to do everything. And of course that's true, but I say invest in your business. You have to.
Absolutely.
And people probably wouldn't know, but I spend at least 30 minutes a day writing jokes for Twitter. And that has been and I go to the conferences and I do all the other stuff too. But if I don't spend 30 minutes a day writing jokes for Twitter, my traffic goes down to my blog significantly.
Yeah, absolutely. We treat this like a business. We treat this like a profession, like I was a magazine writer for years. And, I come out of an editing background. I was on staff at several magazines, freelance for years. And, I bring that mindset. This isn't like my hobby. This is my profession. And we have an editorial calendar. We have a schedule for posting. We play around with different things. And we found that, some things work better than other things. And that's evolved over the last 18 months of doing this together. But it's not like, oh, I wonder what I'll do today. No, we are planned. Our editorial calendar is planned through July, and we plan our posts on Facebook. We plan our posts on Twitter. We are about to start getting into using a social media tool that will allow us to plan our pins on Pinterest. We take this very seriously. I mean, talk about, being afraid to say anything about making money. This is my plan for sending my kid through college. So it's got to work because there is no plan B.
Well, yeah. And, I was just thinking about this. I was looking at all the press you guys have done, and you've been in 2 books already, and that's in the last 18 months. You've been all over the place. And let me ask you this, how much of that is you reaching out, doing the, pounding on the doors, and what percentage of that is you doing outreach?
That's probably, well, let me step back for a second, because it's probably 95% me doing outreach, but it is 100% doing things like being active in the blogging community and being active in Facebook groups and attending Twitter parties and doing blog link ups and interacting with other bloggers and being supportive of other bloggers who are also doing really wonderful work that we are thrilled to be able to pass along to our readers and say, hey, if you like us, you're going to really love this blogger. You're going to really adore, this mom's sense of humor or this dad's sense of humor. So while for our 1-year anniversary, that's what a lot of the press you're seeing was around. I put together a blog tour, basically, and it was, 95% of me reaching out to people that, we asked either write something about us or have us write something on your blog about our anniversary or something that will fit with your blog audience, but tied to our anniversary. So, but I would not have been able to do that kind of outreach without having, made the connections and forming the participating in the community and helping other people as well, giving back before you take, to allow me to actually approach people who would be willing to feature us or have me guest for them. We did 3 weeks in January around our anniversary, and then we gave away a huge basket of mommy literature, tons of book. Tracy Beckerman's book, Lost in Suburbia, Leslie Marinelli's anthology, You Have Lipstick on Your Teeth, Jill Smokler's book, Confessions of a Scary Mommy, and on and on and on. And we threw in some Godiva chocolate and some champagne, and one of our readers won that basket for herself. So it was a lot of legwork and outreach, but it was based on, I was able to reach out because there were so many people who had I had gotten connected with and had done the things like sharing and commenting and sharing the knowledge that I have as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you are a connector for sure. I've met you. You came right up to me and you, you had a mission when you met me and you said, I want to talk to you. I am going to grab you at the end of this session. And you did. And I love that because it does work. If you get out there and whether you're at a blog conference or if you're just in a virtual Facebook group with other bloggers, if you connect to them and you actually develop a relationship with them and promote their stuff, wow, there's such a good chance that they will include you in their projects. And I just from the last podcast I did, I'm now going to be in another anthology from somebody I didn't know.
Wow.
That Susie said, oh, you need to contact so and so, and he wants to put you in his book. So anyway, that sort of stuff happens.
It does.
Because you get out there and you talk to people. I mean, I've asked the biggest bloggers, that I'm aware of, at least in my space, the humor space, to come on the show. And some just say no, and that's fine. But I figure what's the harm? And so I love the fact that you do outreach, because I think a lot of people are afraid to ask for what they want. And, there's nothing more courageous, I think, that, and sometimes people just say no, and that's fine.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's amazing how many people will say yes. That's what I love.
It is amazing how many people will say yes, and I think especially if we're talking with women bloggers, women are afraid to ask. And I learned early on in my career that the worst thing that could possibly happen is that somebody will say no, thank you. But if you don't ask, then you don't get anything. So I always ask. And we run a series on our site as well, where we do Q&As with parenting authors, humorists who are coming out with books. And we have been able to do interviews with the biggest parenting humorists out there. I just had Jerry Mahoney on. His book came out a couple of weeks ago called Mommy Man, How I Went from Mild-Mannered Geek to Gay Super Dad. And it's a story of his, he and his husband's quest to have a family through egg donation and surrogacy. And before that, we had Jason Good, who's a father and comedian. And we've had Robin O'Brien, and we've had Nicole Nepper. All of these are really big people. We had Johanna Stein, who is a writer for the Disney show Wander Over Yonder. And she had her own web series on Yahoo, Life of Mom. She's hilariously funny. And it's amazing. I've asked all these people, not one of them has said no. In fact, I think they're really happy to do it because they like talking about what they do too.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I wanted to ask you before we go, you have to tell the story about how you stumbled into the ladies' room conversation.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Here's a lesson. If you ever Don't be afraid to kind of just bust in. I mean, I'm a pretty polite person, and I don't like randomly wander up to people on the street and bust into their conversations. But I happen to be at the Hearst offices in New York City. It was my last stop before I was heading out to JFK to fly home to my family, and I'd had lunch with one of my editors at Good Housekeeping, and I was in the ladies' room just to make a pit stop before I got in a cab to go out to JFK. And into the ladies' room came I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 other editors, and they're talking amongst themselves, and I can hear their conversation through the door, and they're sharing stories about their worst doctor experiences ever. Now, it happened that I had a few years prior a hellacious experience with a dentist that ended up I had to have a lawyer, and it went to mediation, and unfortunately I lost, and it left it was a very bad experience. But I figured I had something to share, and I felt very passionate about this. So I said, excuse me, ladies, I couldn't help it over here. And I proceeded to tell my bad dentist story. One of the women in that little group was the editor over my editor at Good Housekeeping, and she said, "What's your name?" And I told her, and she said, "Oh, of course, I've seen your byline in the magazine." And she gave me her name. She's like, "Hey, could you write down your contact information?" And I think I was out of business cards, so I wrote it on a paper towel. A paper towel, maybe with a lipstick or with a pen or something. And I said bye-bye, and I caught my flight, and I went home, and I didn't think anything of it. A year later, I got an email from that lady. Her name was Nancy Stedman, and she had left Good Housekeeping, and she was now over at More magazine. And a year later, she emailed me out of the blue and said, I don't know if you'll remember me. We met in the ladies' room, and I'm at More now, and we are about to do our very first package at More on sex over 40. Would you like to write the lead essay for us? And she said, I've been on your site. I know what you do, and I like your work, and we would like to have you write this. Is sex better after 40? And I said, well, hell yeah, it's better after 40. Sure, I'll write the essay for you. And that led to one of the best received packages that the magazine had done. It was sex, so it was very highly read. And then after that, it led to a column. I wrote, for 2 years, I wrote their health column in the magazine because they liked my work so much from the essay. So goes to show you that if you put yourself forward a little bit and not be afraid to put yourself forward and go out and make contact, really good things can come from the most unexpected situations.
I 100% agree. I've had similar experiences, and it just absolutely works. But, you just keep going and you keep pumping out content. What I always tell authors or writers, bloggers is, okay, you work on your craft, you keep writing, keep writing, but you gotta have a marketing strategy if you want to really get some good traffic. You have to do it. Lightning is probably not going to strike randomly, as it has for a few people, but not for the majority of us. And so you gotta build a marketing plan, and it doesn't have to include anything other than I'm going to focus a certain amount of time every day of getting out there and connecting with bloggers. And that's really what I found is some of the best ways as well, is go to the conferences, or at least find everyone virtually, do the blog hops, the Twitter parties, all of that.
Yep, I agree 100%. When I had my first blog, I approached it from a very old media standpoint, whereas I was the writer and I was pushing content out to my readers, and I didn't really engage with them, and I didn't understand the value of engaging with other bloggers. By the time several years had passed and Jessica and I had put together Science of Parenthood, my mindset was very different, and I understood the value of community and how much we can all help each other. It's been said many, many times. I've heard Jill Smokler say it. Jen Mann of People I Want to Punch in the Throat said it recently over the weekend at the Blog University, when the water rises, all ships rise. And basically that means, when we all work together, we don't have to compete. When we all work together to improve and put out good content and help each other, promote it, then we all benefit from it. And that's one of the reasons I like blogging so much, is because you do find people who are willing to share and help and weigh in and help you spread your word, because you will help them spread their content as well. And it's a very loving, generous community, at least the ones that I found.
I absolutely 100% agree, and it's just a fun community. If you're a writer, get involved. We like talking to other writers. It's fun for us.
Oh God, we never shut up.
Well, anyway, let's end on that note, because basically, the whole point is get involved, get out there, meet people, and you will be surprised at, what kind of traffic comes back your way. But you gotta keep going.
Absolutely. And I'll put this out for readers, listeners of your podcast. If any of your blogger listeners have questions, they're more than welcome to find me on Facebook on the Science of Parenthood page, or my personal page as well. I'm really easy to find, and I'm very approachable, and I love to offer advice and help other writers.
Yeah, and how would they find you on Twitter as well?
On Twitter, I'm at Sci of Parenthood. So it's SCIOF Parenthood.
Perfect. So go to scienceofparenthood.com, subscribe on your RSS reader, and they're in books. Go buy the books they're in and read their stuff. It's fantastic. I'm a big fan of Noreen, even though I just met her a bit ago. And I'm a reader. So thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, DJ. This was so much fun. I really appreciate you having me. This was just awesome. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And say goodbye.
Goodbye.